there.
Sit a spell here on the Tri-Cities front porch and think out loud with Dave and Carl on WJCW and WGOC.
Tri-Cities Talk Radio, WJCW and WGOC. You know, Carl, we've covered a lot of different things here on our morning show, but this is the first time we've talked about something called vintage baseball. Now, that's two words for baseball, not one word, as it is normally spelled. But we have someone who actually participates in vintage baseball on the hotline with us this morning from down in the Nashville area, who can tell us all about vintage baseball. And we welcome to the program Trapper Haskins. Good morning, Trapper.
Good morning, Carl. Good morning, Dave.
Well, it's great to have you on the program. First of all, let's just get an explanation. Paint the picture for us. What is vintage baseball?
So we play Civil War era barehanded baseball. This is the game as it was in its infancy when the rules were first being sort of cemented. And we play as a part of the Tennessee Association of Vintage Baseball, and we wear period uniforms, which is going to consist of long pants, trousers, long sleeve shirts. A couple of teams wear ties. So we dress as the baseball teams would have in the 1860s. And the specific rules that we play by are the 1864 rules. And in that day, there were no gloves. Not because they were against the rules, but they hadn't been invented yet. So we all played barehanded. Oh. You would recognize it as baseball. It's the same game we all grew up loving. You know, there's 9 men on the field, there's 9 innings, 90 feet between the bases. But there's a few differences that make it a unique experience, both for the players and the people watching the game. I would say the biggest rule difference is that there's a rule called on the bound, and a fielder can catch a ball on one bounce off the ground, and the batter would still be out. In other words, the ball doesn't have to be caught out of the air for the batter to be out. So,
and I was reading
levels the field.
I was reading somewhere where in those days the batter was usually called a striker. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, a lot of terminology is different. We call the pitcher is the hurler, the catcher is the behind, the batter is the striker, and they had some other colorful names. They called the outfield the garden. So
that is just wonderful. I'm really intrigued by this. There's a big Wikipedia entry that describes all the things you're talking about here, Trapper. I wanted to know, now the equipment, you say, of course, you don't have gloves. Are the ball and bat, are they different? Do they conform back to the 1860 styles?
They do, yes, sir. We play with a period-appropriate ball. It's made by the Vintage Baseball Factory. I think they're out of Cooperstown, New York. But there's still a few companies that are producing these balls. There's enough clubs playing this sport to make it worth their while, I guess, to make them. It's a little bit different. The ball it's slightly bigger. We play barehanded, so a lot of people are under the impression that it's sort of a cushiony softball, and the reality is it's not. Now, it's not as firm as a modern ball, but there's not a whole lot of give to it. It has a different stitching pattern, so it doesn't have that sort of interlocking figure eight stitching pattern that we're used to. It has a different pattern to the stitches, but you'd recognize it as a baseball. Now, the bats are made for us by a company in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, called Smacker Bat Company, and they do conform to 1864 specs, which is pretty simple. In 1864, the only rule in the rule book on the bats was that the maximum diameter could be no more than 2.5 inches. Now, a modern bat is generally going to go up to about 2 3/4 inches. So these bats are a little bit narrower, but there's no regulation on the length, no regulation on the weight. So we get all of our bats are different shapes and sizes, but the only thing that they conform to is they're no greater than 2.5 inches in diameter. So.
Does the pitcher, the hurler, does he throw overhand?
It's underhand.
Okay.
I don't think the overhand was introduced until maybe the late 1870s, 1880s. Mm-hmm. It's an underhand, and it's not like fast pitch softball. It's more like men's league softball, where it's just it's a gentle kind of lob.
Okay, all right.
By the way, the Tennessee Vintage Baseball Association is going to do an exhibition game here in Upper East Tennessee in Bristol in August. And, of course, it's a little too early to talk about that specifically, but as the time draws closer, we will, and perhaps chat with you again at a later date, Trapper, about that event. But there will be vintage baseball in Bristol at DeVault Field coming up in August of this year. Now, there's bound to be some expense associated with doing all this, the uniforms and so forth. Do you depend on gate? I know you have an association, go around, plays games. Do you depend on contributions from the public? How do you fund vintage baseball, Trapper?
Yeah, one of the things that we're proud to offer is free family entertainment. There's no cost for the game, so the uniforms, the equipment is paid for largely by the players themselves. We all pay a fee to play every year, but in addition to that, we have a program that we sell at the games, and there is sponsorship availability in that program. We're going to be in 10 different cities this summer. We'll probably reach somewhere over 12,000 fans, and the sponsorships are as low as $125 a season to get in our program. So generally, between sponsorships and member fees, that covers most of our costs.
Does the association here in Tennessee have a competitive league?
Do you mean as far as playing for
a
championship?
Yeah, do you have an organized league that you compete in?
We do, yes, sir. So last year the league was just 2 teams. We just had this was our first year last year. We had Franklin and Nashville, Tennessee, and we play for the Sulphur Dell Cup, which is named after the
old stadium.
The first place. Yeah, exactly. So last year we were 2 teams, and Michael Thurman and I, who started the league, our hope was that we'd get enough interest to double to 4 teams. And the reality is we got so much interest, we got so many people wanting to sign up, we expanded to 8 teams. So we've got 8 teams. Yes, sir, we've got 8 teams from Knoxville to Nashville and everywhere in between. And so we're going to play about an 11-game season, and then at the end of the season at Carton Plantation in Franklin, we're going to have a 2-day tournament for the Sulphur Dell Cup. So yeah, we do play in an 8-team league, and we're really the only league in Tennessee, and really furthermore the only league in the South that's playing vintage baseball. So
what are the what are the ages of the participants?
It would surprise you. Last year on my team, the Franklin Farriers, our youngest player was 22, and our oldest player was 72.
All right. All right.
Have you ever thought of, or maybe you've done this, we have a lot of people involved in the Civil War reenactments, had a big weekend where you had reenactments of the Civil War and vintage baseball from 1864.
You mean together?
Well, no, not on the field at the same time.
No, of course, but I mean,
well, that's something we've talked about. Actually, one of the things that's really cool about these games is, in addition to the public coming out and enjoying it with their family, we do get quite a few people in the reenactment community. Some of them just civilian reenactors. It's really cool to be out there playing the game and look on the sidelines, and there's ladies in hoop dresses watching the game, and there's a couple of Civil War reenactors, both Confederate and Union, that have come out to our games, and they'll sit on the sidelines in their period appropriate chairs, taking in the game, because it was something that this is right in that same time period, 1864. So it fit.
I know in a lot of Civil War reenactments, there are a lot of roles for children to play, kids and so forth. Probably not so much here, but I'm just curious. Are kids really curious about the old-time baseball and enjoy it and come up to you afterwards and want to learn more?
They do. My own 2 kids, they're usually disappointed on a weekend when I tell them there's not a baseball game. They love going to the baseball game. And, we don't have any bleachers. We play at historic venues, and so there's generally just shade trees and grass. So we encourage people to bring blankets and chairs, and it's really nice. You'll get a whole family sitting on the blanket watching the game. And then after the game, we generally open up the field to the kids. We let them run the bases. We have a couple of the players that stick around on the field to actually pitch the ball to them and let them swing an 1864 bat and throw an 1864 ball and just get a sense of how it goes. And yeah, I mean, it's every couple of games we'll get somebody to come up to the bench, a young kid that wants everybody's autograph. So it's nice to be thought of as a prominent athlete.
In the games, do you use jargon, if you would, or slang, baseball slang, and so forth from the 1860s?
Absolutely, yeah. We always say to our players, between the foul lines, it's 1864, and there's no, there's no chatter as far as against the other team. That we don't speak out against the umpire or anything like that, the arbiter in the day. But so if somebody makes a nice hit, we'll tell them well struck. If somebody's really hustling to first base, we'll yell leg it, leg it. We'll tell the other players to show some ginger.
Yes.
And tell our hurler to hurl the onion, which is the slang for the ball. So yeah, there's a lot of terms that we try and incorporate into the game, just to give the fans a sense that they're really seeing a game from 1864.
Yeah. Well, Trapper, I would, excuse me, Carl, I would suspect that there are people listening to the program right now who may be interested in learning more, or maybe even interested in forming a team here in the Tri-Cities. How can they get in touch with you folks?
So our website is very easy to remember. It's just TennesseeVintageBaseball.com. Again, that's TennesseeVintageBaseball.com. I believe all of our contact information is on there, and in addition to that, there's information on the website as far as our schedule, the schedule for our date, August 2nd in Bristol, and even the jargon is on there. The rules, we get tons of links on our website, so people can definitely learn more about us there and contact us through that website. So,
hey,
yeah,
Trapper Haskins, this has been just a delight to talk with you there. Thanks for adding a bunch of ginger to our show this morning. Okay,
Carl, Dave, thank you guys very much.
Take care. Bye now.
And I forgot it. Richard wanted me to ask him if they used instant replay, and I forgot to ask.
Sure, it was written down and handed over to the commentators right there.